Welcome to the Flight Club Podcast, a woman's guide to leaning out. We give you a behind-the-scenes look at business launch and growth through the stories of successful female entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Felina Hansen, founder and CEO of Hera Hub.
Hello and welcome. I am excited to share my conversation today with Dawn Ressel. She is an entrepreneur who is doing some really cool work, some very interesting things. She is an energy healer. She works as a meditation coach. And what we're going to talk about today is why she left her longtime corporate job, her corporate America position, to pursue her passions. And that's what a lot of us are looking to do, right? How do we break out of that corporate ladder and launch onto our own? She definitely likes to say that she follows her inner guidance, which led her to assist others in their spiritual progression and healing. And she is a certified life activation practitioner. She's a healer. She's a max meditation instructor from the Modern Mystery School, which sounds pretty cool. I'm excited to learn about that. Welcome to the show today, Dawn.
Thank you, Felina. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to share your journey with our listeners. So let's spend some time before we get to your current ventures and take us back. Tell us the story behind the entrepreneur. Take us all the way back. Where are you from? Where'd you go to school? Why did you make those choices? And then take us along your career path.
Sure, yeah, happy to. Well, I went to undergraduate in Florida State, Florida State University, and I was studying multimedia, like media production. Actually, at that time, it was more video production. And I got in my senior year, and I was doing some internships for TV stations, and I started having a little bit of a panic moment because I really hated my internships.
Oh no.
And I realized that the hustle and bustle and high pressure of television didn't match with my personality at all, with my temperament.
Yeah.
So I started researching graduate programs. I thought, what can I do that kind of builds on what I'm already doing but is going to take me in a different direction? And at that time, the internet was really just starting to really take hold, and it was before, the dot-com boom even, really. And I found a program at Georgia Tech in Atlanta for mass media or multimedia design. And so I went through that program, and I learned how to do multimedia design and web design and human-computer interaction, and that actually fit me a lot better because I was able to be, behind the scenes a little bit and be more thoughtful about what I was producing. It wasn't like a, this has to be done in 20 minutes kind of thing. It was, it was more my pace, more in line with my temperament. So I actually really enjoyed that program, and I after graduate school, I started doing work for consulting companies and doing user experience design, user interface design for software and web applications, and that's how I spent almost 20 years of my career is doing that kind of work, working on software and really trying to understand the human aspect of technology and create technology that was more human focused and really met the needs of the people that we were trying to serve, and make it easier to use, make it more in line with what they actually wanted, and try to really bridge that gap between what the business really wanted and needed and what the end users really wanted and needed, and bring that into a form that would satisfy both. So that's the bulk of how I spent my career.
So I want to pause on this for a sec before we move on. I mean, you worked for some very large companies like Blue Shield, Intuit, which is, for folks who don't know, the maker of QuickBooks, and several others. I want to I want to pause because you started this journey, some time ago, back around year 2000, where the internet was totally different, right? I mean, this whole idea of user
It was, yeah.
experience, and it was much, I don't want to say it was more difficult because, I mean, you could argue that, but I also at that period of time was working for an internet company that was developing a web platform. And I was, director of marketing for the company. So I wasn't, on the user interface side per se, but it was very, very interesting to work with these, software engineers to try to convey to them, because I was kind of intermediary a little bit of, what the client wanted and, and what was coming out. It's
hmm
challenging. I mean, it's not
hmm
easy to convey that and get it right. I mean, a lot of companies are constantly going back to the drawing board.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And with, so I don't want to say it's gotten easier again, but since technology has changed over the last 20 years, I would say there's probably easier ways to get feedback and things of that nature. If you don't mind, talk a bit about your work specifically with Intuit, again, the company that makes
Sure.
QuickBooks and some other software. But what did you
Yeah,
do with
TurboTax
them?
too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I worked for Intuit for about 8 years, and it was the end of the last 8 years of my corporate career. And let's see. So I'd already been in the field for a while. I started as a senior interaction designer, and at that time, Intuit was exploring working on healthcare related software.
Hmm.
And so I actually was in a business unit that was quite different than the rest of Intuit because it was more of like a startup within a larger organization. So it was like 80 people inside of a, I don't know, 4,000 person company. And we were a little bit kind of insulated, I guess, from the rest of the culture intentionally. Like we were sort of left alone to do our own thing. We had autonomy, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it was actually kind of fun trying to create something new. It actually didn't pan out for business reasons more than anything else. There
Mhm.
definitely was a consumer need in that space, but just business wise and technically, it ended up just not being feasible. So Intuit left that business, and then I ended up in a different role. And while I was over the course of those 4 years, towards the end of it, I was actually promoted to a management position. So I started managing a team of like 5 or 6 designers and researchers, and then that business unit dissolved, and and then I actually left Intuit for personal reasons more than professional reasons. I ended up moving across the country, and then I missed it. Honestly, I missed California, and
Mm.
I missed working at a company where I felt like they really understood my discipline and supported it. And so I ended up moving back to California, and I wanted to go back to Intuit. That was really my goal. And I ended up getting another position at Intuit, and they called us boomerangs because people, that's like a term at Intuit because people leave and come back a lot at Intuit because it's such a good company.
They're like,
Like people
wait,
are
I
like, oh,
want
the grass,
back.
exactly. They're like, the grass is greener. And they're like, no, it's not. So like, there's even a term for that. We're called boomerangs. So anyway, I was a boomerang. I went back to Intuit and spent another 4 years there. And at that time I was hired into a management role, and I was in a central position. It was very different from the business unit that I was in initially, which was, like I said, very sort of autonomous and insulated. This was kind of the opposite. It was a central role, and our job was to coordinate and work with every single business unit across the company on cross-company initiatives. So it was really different and interesting. And when I started, they didn't have a user experience practice in the division. It was purely a technical organization, and they knew that they needed this expertise. So they wanted somebody to come in who had a vision, who could build a team, and create this discipline in this organization that had never had it before. It was, I think, around 800 engineers or something like that when I started, and zero zero user experience people. So it was a really interesting challenge. I was really excited about it. I was totally up for it, and excited about the possibility of it. So I ended up hiring people, here and there, and was fortunate enough to hire some really, really good people who, I guess not fortunate, I mean, I chose them carefully. So I had a little bit of good luck. I had, good instincts too about who to hire. And they were just like in so much demand because people were like, wow, that's what you guys can do. You're adding so much value. This is great. And by the time I left that position, it had grown from, I had 2 designers when I started to 13 designers and researchers. And now the team is, gosh, I don't even know. I want to say they probably have about 20, 25 people. Since I left, they just kept growing because the need was so obvious, and the value that the team was bringing was really evident to the whole company. So that was a really, really fun challenge. I'm pretty proud of that part of my career because I really felt like I created something that had a lasting impact, and yeah, it was a really fun challenge. I learned a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting to me of sometimes how, the user interface of a software platform is kind of ignored, right? I mean, in some cases it's
Mm,
like the last thing we think about, but it is the most critical element. I mean, if you can't
yeah,
navigate your way through a platform as the user, you're just not going to do it, right? You're going to abandon
right.
it and go to a different product. It is so
Yeah,
critical. And it's so obvious, what companies pay attention to it and which
yeah,
don't. But you're right, it has
exactly.
become such a bigger part of development work. It's so critical. So I want to get to the point here where you made this decision to leap to
Mhm.
lean out of corporate, as we like to call it.
Mhm.
I know that you're doing some continued work in this field, the user experience field, but your focus moving forward, I know, is much more on what we talked about in your introduction, life
Mhm.
activation practitioner and energy healer. So let's go to that point of
Yeah.
what was that decision? I mean, you'd been into it a long time. You left, you came back, you were happy, but there was obviously some decision that made you say, you know what, I'm done. I'm going out on my own.
Yeah. Yeah, there definitely was. I mean, I would actually say it was even a crisis point for me.
Mm.
Um, because I thought that I would probably I couldn't imagine myself leaving Intuit. It was such a comfortable place. It really is a good company. I mean, people stay there for a long time for a reason. You're treated well. It's a good environment. You have really smart colleagues. You're working on products that, are really good quality products. So it's a very comfortable environment, and a lot of people don't leave because of that. And so, but I was going through a lot in my personal life, and it brought me to a crisis point where I started questioning everything.
Mm.
I questioned my marriage. I questioned, who am I? What am I doing in this profession? Is this, I've enjoyed it up to now, but is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this the biggest impact that I can have in the world? And I had, like I told you, I'd grown the team up to, from 2 people to 13 people. And when they hired me, they told me, well, we think the team will probably get to be about 5 or 6 people. And, I had already doubled that, and I'd
Mm.
already uh, far surpassed what they had expected me to do when I arrived. So I felt very good about what I had accomplished already at Intuit, and my personal life was really, it was really at a crisis point. I was having what I would call like, I was on the border of a nervous breakdown, actually.
Mm.
And so I started seeking spirituality, and I hadn't done that in most of my life. I kind of grew up in a religious household, but it was not really something that I ever felt was mine. I felt like it was really more my mom's journey.
Mm.
And so I just kind of, when I left home, I just kind of put it aside and said, okay, well, that was my mom's thing. I'm not really religious. It's not really my thing. But when I got to this crisis point in my personal life, I really started seeking something. And at that point, I didn't really know the difference between religion and spirituality. I just knew religion. But I ended up going to this retreat that was more for my mental health, really. And it saved me, and it changed my whole life. It's called the Hofmann Process. I'll just put that out there in case anybody is interested in looking at it. It's
Yeah.
really a emotional boot camp, and it deals with helping resolve really deep-seated issues that you have with your past, particularly your childhood, that are really holding you back. And that was really where I was at. I had a lot of unhealed stuff that had happened in my childhood that was putting me on the verge of this nervous breakdown. And I got so much healing out of that retreat, but it opened me up to spirituality. It wasn't, I wouldn't say, the primary focus of the retreat, but it was a part of it. It was a decent part of it. We practiced meditation, we did visualization, we connected with our higher self. And like these were concepts that I didn't really know, like they were kind of foreign to me, and they felt really good. Like they felt healing. I felt at home with them. It was something that I felt it was what I was needing to nurture my soul, but it didn't come with any kind of, religious, I guess you could say, dogma, or they weren't telling me what to believe. It was really about finding my own inner guidance, which is what I was missing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, that led me to really just open up to look for more of that. And that's when I started meditating. That's when I started looking for just other possibilities to help me heal, and really opening up to my spirituality, which was something that I put a wall around for very long. And at that time I had anxiety disorder, extremely, I would say, severe generalized anxiety. I was on medication for it. I was under the supervision of a psychiatrist. I was doing therapy. But it certainly wasn't healed, and through this path, I've actually gotten to the point now, I've been on a spiritual path for about 5 years, where I don't even need medication anymore. I haven't been on anxiety medication for 2 years because
Mm.
I don't need it. I've really freed myself of those things that were the underlying root cause of the anxiety through spirituality. So that's why I became drawn to this path, because of a personal crisis more than a professional crisis. It was really personal.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so many women that we meet, through our communities, and especially at Hera Hub. I hear similar stories of, there was
Mm,
something that happened in my life, and I needed to fix it, and I
mm-hmm.
was able to do that, and now I want to help others do the same. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
basically, women mostly start businesses not to, they don't typically have in their mind, "I wanna make, millions of dollars." They start businesses because there's a need. They have a need, other people they
Yeah.
know have a need, and
Yeah.
so, they look to, thankfully step in and help and support. So, let's get into your business in a little more detail here.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
describe to us, who do you work with and what do you do?
Yeah. Well, I do meditation coaching is one of the easiest ways people can work with me. I do group meditation coaching like twice a month typically, usually Monday evenings, and it's a very relaxing form of meditation that I lead. It's called Max Meditation. It's a really wonderful blend of a few different styles of meditation, which is why I like it. And,
Mm.
a lot of people will come to me and they'll say, my mind's too busy. I can't meditate, or I tried meditating and, I couldn't shut down my brain, and, I can't even do 5 minutes. I don't know if I can do this hour. So these are the kinds of things that I hear really often from people. And I tell them, just trust me, just give me an hour of your time and let's see what happens. And I'm really happy to say that I've never had anyone come to my meditation who couldn't meditate. So, yeah, we tell ourselves certain things and we hold ourselves back, but really it is about finding, well, there's a few things. I think one is it does really help to have someone there who's guiding
Mhm.
you and who's holding space for you. And it's a little bit of a different experience than an app. There's some good apps out there, and I've used them myself. But there is something different about being in the presence of a person who's really holding that space for you and really kind of guiding you and leading you. And there's a level of accountability too, that when you actually have to drive somewhere and show up and sit there and pay for it, you take it more seriously. So I've never had anybody who couldn't sit through the hour, and then usually they open their eyes and they're like, "Wait, was that an hour?"
Mhm.
And I have to tell them, "Oh yeah, look at your watch or look at your phone. It was definitely an hour." So I love that. And they always feel so much better afterwards. And I get all kinds of people telling me, "Oh, I had the best sleep that night than I've had in years," or the next day it just felt so effortless compared to how I normally feel when I go to work. And I hear those kinds of things, and it really speaks to the power of meditation, and particularly when you do carve out like an hour, like a long chunk of time to meditate. It does something different to our bodies. It does something to our physiology, to our brain waves. That's so beneficial and healing, and it can carry through certainly for a few days, maybe even through the week if you actually dedicate the time to that. So I love doing that. I love doing meditation coaching. I see the benefits that it has for people. I know how much it's changed my life. So I love that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it almost seems mandatory at this point in the world we live in because we are
Yeah.
just so bombarded
Yes, yes.
constantly with, just
Yeah.
everything coming from all directions. So
It's
I
very true.
yeah,
Mhm.
I love that you're doing that. I have to ask because I mentioned this in the introduction. What a cool name for a school, Modern Mystery School, where you're
Yeah.
what where is the Modern Mystery School? That's really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for asking about it. It is awesome. I love it. So the Modern Mystery School is a public school, and people can go there for its advanced spiritual training is really what the school is about. And it is in the lineage of King Solomon. So the teachings that are given in the school are from a very ancient tradition. They can actually be traced back to Hermes, which is over 8,000 years ago,
Hmm.
but unbroken to King Solomon. He actually took all of these teachings and sort of put them together in a lineage and a true package or way that it could be handed down in a pure form over time. And so everything that we learn through the Modern Mystery School is taught essentially the same way that it was taught 3,500 years ago. We don't have online classes. We actually go in person and we sit in a room and we sit with a teacher who gives us the teachings and the rituals and the meditations and the tools for our spiritual progression that we can use in our daily life. And it's amazing. And so people can go there. They can there's certain classes that are open that are more about your own personal progression. And then some people feel called to become a healer, like I felt called to become a healer. And so there's an option to become a healer. Once you get to a certain point on the path, you can continue and become a healer and then start helping other people with their progression. And so that's what I did. And so, yeah, I've been a healer now for a year and a half with the school. I'm certified, I'm trained, and I love it. I mean, it really changes people's lives. I'm doing it because it changed my life, and like we talked about, that's why we do things, right? And we see the power of it in our own lives, and then we want to share it with other people. So that's where I feel called to serve right now, is to really help people with their progression. And the types of tools that we do, the types of healings that we do, people might be familiar with Reiki, which is type of energy healing, and it's more about physical healing. The type
Mhm.
of healing that we do, although we do have some modalities that are focused on physical healing, I would say the emphasis of our lineage is more about spiritual progression. And so helping people really tune into what is their purpose, who are they, finding that inner peace, finding that purpose, feeling empowered to actually make big changes in their lives that are going to help them and help other people around them. So that's really what the focus of the work is that we do.
That's fantastic. And can you see, or maybe you have already done this, taking this work back into the corporate world, maybe even back to Intuit?
It's an interesting question. I'm certainly open to, I think meditation right now in the corporate world is very pretty accepted right now.
Yeah.
And employers are seeing the benefits of meditation. There's a lot of scientific evidence now that proves, the benefits of it from a stress relief perspective, from a mental health perspective, from a productivity perspective. You're more focused, you're more calm. All of these benefits are things that employers want, right? So I'm very open to working with corporate clients to lead meditation. And then, healing is it depends. I mean, it's a very personal thing, so it's not necessarily something that your employer would say, go get this healing,
Yeah.
It's really, you have to opt into it. It's more personal, but the meditation is certainly something that I think employers are very open to. I'd be happy to work with any company that wants me to come in and help their employees on that front, because it's so beneficial for the individual and really beneficial for the company too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have seen quite a few companies, especially in that tech sector, be very
Yeah.
open to that and bring in folks
hmm
and, do this just as they would host a yoga class on, the corporate campus, the
Yeah.
same with meditation. So,
Yep.
well, what else is on the horizon for your business coming up here?
Yeah, well, I am continuing to learn more and more healing modalities. So as of right now, I have about, gosh, I'd have to count them. I want to say about a dozen healing modalities that I'm trained in. It might be like a few, well, it might be a few more, a few less. I don't have to count. But I've got, a pretty good set of healing modalities that I can use with people to help them with all kinds of a range of issues, so or things that they want to be more empowered in. So I'm really happy about that. But there's some more modalities too that I want to learn, and so I'm continuing to progress with the healer, and we go back every year. You asked where is the Modern Mystery School? I didn't answer. The headquarters is in Toronto, Canada, actually, in the Western world. It's also in Tokyo for the Eastern world, but for the Western, it's in Toronto. So every year, we go back for certification for the key modalities, so that it's the integrity of the work. We get more training, and then we get assessed to make sure that we're actually upholding, the quality and the integrity of the work and the lineage and the way that it's meant to be upheld. So I really enjoy doing that. I love that. I think it's a great benefit for me and for my clients, because they can be assured that I've actually done the work and I know what I'm doing and I'm upholding the tradition the way that it's meant to be upheld. So I'll be doing that every year, and then just continuing to learn more modalities and get the word out about this too, because I know there's so many people who are asking these profound questions that I used to ask, 5 years ago, like, who am I and what's my purpose? Why am I here? Am I really supposed to be doing this? And, I can really help those people. So I want to get the word out so I can help more and more people.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Well, if our listeners want to learn more and get in touch with you, Dawn, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can go to my website, which is auroralove.life. It's AURORALOVE.life. And I have a contact form on there, so they can feel free to reach out. And if anyone happens to be listening who's not in San Diego but is intrigued by the work I'm doing, we have people all across the world who are certified to do these types of healing. So I'm happy to connect people with someone in their area.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Dawn. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you, Felina. Likewise.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Flight Club, sponsored by Hera Hub. We look forward to sharing more success stories with you soon.